Have you ever wondered why the older you get, the less you trust people? When you were younger, you thought life would get easier as you grew up. You thought you would have more friends, better relationships, more people who understood you. But then one day you start realizing the opposite. There are people who used to be very close to you who now feel like strangers. There are people who only appear when they need something from you. And there are people who smile in front of you but don't truly want you to do better. The strange thing is, no one teaches you these things when you're young. No one tells you that. Growing up sometimes means losing your illusions about people. You begin to understand. Not everyone is sincere. Not everyone deserves your kindness. And sometimes loneliness feels more peaceful than trying to hold on to the wrong relationships. Maybe right now, you're also feeling exhausted because of people, tired of always being the one who tries, tired of trusting the wrong people, tired of pretending to be okay in relationships that drain you. But listen to me carefully. There are truths that are very painful, but if you understand them early enough, you can avoid years of disappointment in your life. In today's video, I'm going to share with you 10 painful truths about people that most of us only truly understand when we grow up. And stay until the end of the video because truth number 8 is something that wakes many people up far too late. The first truth, not everyone wants you to do better. When I was younger, I used to think that if I worked hard to change my life for the better, the people around me would be happy for me. I thought, if you become more disciplined, more mature, more focused, other people will support you. But life taught me a very different truth. Not everyone feels comfortable watching you grow. Some people preferred the old version of you, the version that was easier to control, weaker, more dependent, less noticeable. And the painful thing is sometimes those people are the ones who used to be closest to you. You start focusing on your goals. You become more serious about your future. You change your habits. You stop wasting time on meaningless entertainment. But instead of encouragement, you begin hearing things like, "You've changed lately. Why are you taking life so seriously? So now that you're successful, you forgot your friends. Relax a little." At first you think they're just joking, but the older you get, the more you realize. Many people don't actually want you to fail. They just don't want you to surpass them. That's a very difficult truth to accept, because we always want to believe that. The people around us will be happy when we improve. But people compare themselves more than they realize. When you start changing, your existence unintentionally forces others to confront their own delays. Your discipline reminds them of their laziness. Your focus makes them realize they're living without purpose. Your progress makes them feel left behind. And not everyone is mature enough to face that feeling. Many years ago, I met a man who always said he wanted to change his life. He complained about his job, complained about money, complained about living the same repetitive life every day. Then one day, he truly decided to change. He started reading books every morning, waking up earlier, stopped drinking every weekend, spent time learning new skills. But strangely, the people who used to sit and complain with him every night started distancing themselves from him. They said he had changed too much. They told him he was not fun anymore. They mocked him for reading self-improvement books. And that's when I realized something. Many people love hearing you talk about your dreams, but when you actually begin changing your life to achieve them, they become uncomfortable. Because at that point, you are no longer like them. Do you know what the scariest part is? A lot of people give up their own growth just to continue belonging to a certain group. They shrink their ambitions, shrink their personality, shrink their goals, just to make other people feel more comfortable around them. They laugh during meaningless conversations, even though they feel empty inside. They continue habits that are destroying their future just because they're afraid of being called different. But remember this, if you have to make yourself smaller to be accepted, that is not where you belong. People who truly want you to do better will not feel threatened by your growth. They will encourage you, respect your changes, feel happy watching you mature, because truly mature people are not afraid of others shining. Only people who are stuck become uncomfortable when they see others moving forward. I know sometimes this makes you feel lonely. You begin losing connection with people who used to be very close to you. You feel like you no longer fit into the same old conversations. Places that once made you happy now only make you feel drained. But that's not a sign you're heading in the wrong direction. It's often a sign that you're growing. Life has a very strange rule. When you truly change yourself, the relationships around you also change. Some people will leave. Some people will no longer understand you. Some people will call you too serious, too ambitious, too different. But sometimes becoming different is exactly what your life needs to improve. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, have there been times when you held yourself back just to make other people comfortable? Have you ever abandoned a goal because you were afraid of being judged? And more importantly, are you living for your own growth, or are you living to avoid making other people uncomfortable? Because the older you get, the more you understand. Not everyone wants you to do better. And the next truth is even more painful. Truth number 2. Some relationships exist only for benefit. One of the moments that makes people mature the fastest is when they realize not every relationship is built on sincerity. When we are young, we often believe, if we treat someone well, they will also be sincere with us. You help others without calculating. You give them your time, listen to them, show up when they are struggling. And deep down, you think, if one day I need help, they'll be there for me too. But life does not always work that way. The older you get, the more you realize. Some people come close to you not because they truly appreciate who you are, but because they enjoy what they can gain from you. That could be your attention, your time, your money, your knowledge, your connections, or simply the positive energy you bring. They stay when you are valuable to them. But once you no longer provide what they need, they slowly disappear. No explanation, no honest conversation. Things just quietly change. The messages become less frequent. The care becomes less frequent. Their presence also fades away, until one day you realize you were always the one trying to maintain that relationship. I once knew a man who was always ready to help every friend around him. He lent money, helped people fix their resumes, connected people to jobs, listened to their problems for hours. Whenever someone needed help, he showed up. People called him an amazing person, someone with a big heart, someone who never abandons friends. But then there came a period when his life became difficult. His work failed. Financial pressure increased. His mental state collapsed. And for the first time in many years, he was the one who needed help. The painful thing was, many of the people who used to look for him every day became silent. Some read his messages and disappeared. Some said, "I've been really busy lately." Some completely vanished. That's when he realized a very cold truth. Many relationships exist not because of who you are, but because of what you can provide for people. I know this sounds negative, but maturity is not blindly trusting everyone. Maturity is learning to see the motives behind relationships clearly. You begin noticing, some people only text when they need help, only come to you when they feel lonely, only remember you when their life is falling apart. But when you need them, they are nowhere to be found. That is why the older people get, the more selective they become with relationships. Not because they are colder, but because they understand. Fake presence makes people feel even lonelier than being alone. Today, this has become even more common in the age of social media. You may have thousands of followers, hundreds of interactions, countless compliments, but when life truly gets difficult, that's when you discover who genuinely cares about you. Some people always appear under your posts, always laughing and joking with you, always calling you bro, best friend. But when you disappear for a while, they disappear too. Because some relationships today are not built on genuine connection. They are built on convenience, temporary emotions, social benefits, or the need for attention. And the scariest thing is, many people accept relationships like this simply because they are afraid of loneliness. They know they are being used. Know the other person is not sincere, but they still hold on because they fear the feeling of having no one beside them. But remember this, a relationship that makes you feel used will always drain more energy from you than it gives back. People who are truly sincere with you will not only appear when they need something, they will remember you even when you are silent, care about you even when you are no longer useful, stay even when your life is no longer convenient. That is real sincerity. The older I get, the more I believe, the quality of relationships matters far more than the quantity. One sincere person is worth more than hundreds of shallow relationships. Because in the end, what gives people peace is not how many people surround them. It is knowing who will truly stay when life becomes difficult. Ask yourself, is there any relationship in your life where you are always the one trying to hold it together? Is there anyone who only appears when they need something from you? And are you truly loved, or are you simply useful to others? Because the next truth is even more painful. Sometimes, the kindest people are the ones who get hurt the most. Truth number 3. Good people are often used the most. There is something many kind people take years to realize. Kindness is not always appreciated. Sometimes, it simply makes you easier to take advantage of. When we are young, we are often taught to be kind. Think of others. Help when you can. And that is not wrong. But no one teaches you that. If you do not know how to protect yourself, the world will slowly take all your energy away. Kind people often share one thing in common. They struggle to say no. They are afraid of disappointing others, afraid of making someone sad, afraid of being seen as selfish. So they continue, helping even when they are exhausted, listening even when mentally drained, giving even when they have almost nothing left inside. They always think, just one more time. It's okay. I can handle it. But the problem is, people often treat you according to the boundaries you allow. If you constantly sacrifice yourself to please others, eventually they will see it as normal. No longer gratitude, but expectation. They begin thinking, you should be there. You should help. You should understand them. And the moment you can no longer provide that, they become disappointed in you. Not because you became worse, but because they became used to always receiving from you. I once met a very kind woman. She was always the first person to show up when her friends had problems, driving in the middle of the night just to comfort someone after a breakup, putting aside her own work to help others solve their problems, listening to people for hours even when she herself was exhausted. Everyone said she was wonderful, but one day she began burning out. She no longer had enough energy to always be there for everyone. And what hurt her the most was, some people started accusing her of changing. They said, "You've become cold lately. You're not the same anymore. You can't even help with small things now. No one noticed." The person who is always strong for others sometimes also needs rest. That's when she realized a painful truth. Many people love your sacrifice more than they truly care about you. I know this sounds very sad, but maturity is when you understand. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. You cannot continue pouring water into other people's cups when your own cup is already empty. Today, many people are living exactly like this. They become the healer for everyone, the one who always listens, the one who always tries to save others, but inside, they are lonely and exhausted. They smile a lot, help a lot, show up for everyone, but no one truly asks, "What about you?" That is why many kind people slowly change over time, not because they become worse, but because they finally understand, if they do not learn to protect themselves, life will take all their energy away. There's one sentence I want you to remember clearly. You are not responsible for saving everyone. Sometimes, the most mature thing you can do is stop trying to please everybody. A truly kind person is not someone who always says yes. It is someone who knows when to give, when to stop, and who deserves their kindness. Because kindness given to the wrong people becomes pain. I have seen many people lose time, self-respect, mental health, simply because they were afraid of disappointing others. They said yes to everything, then silently burned out alone. But remember this, you were not born to become a source of energy for everyone else. You also deserve protection, deserve to be heard, deserve to rest. And sometimes saying no is the most mature act of self-love. The older you get, the more you understand. Not everyone deserves your time, emotions, and energy. Some people will continue taking until you have nothing left. If you do not create boundaries for yourself, no one else will do it for you. Ask yourself, how long has it been since you put other people before yourself? How many times have you silently endured things just to preserve a relationship? And is your kindness truly appreciated? Or is it simply being treated as something expected? Because the next truth will make people feel even lonelier. Truth 4. The older you get, the more friends you lose. There is one thing many people are not mentally prepared for when entering adulthood, and that is, the further life moves forward, the fewer people truly stay beside you. When we are young, we think friendships will last forever. You once had people who talked with you every day, went everywhere together, shared every secret, seemed like they would never leave. You thought, no matter how life changes in the future, we'll always stay the same, but then time passes. Everyone begins walking a different path. One person focuses on their career. Another starts a family. Someone changes where they live. Someone changes the way they think. Someone matures. Someone remains trapped in the old version of themselves. And distance begins to appear. Not because of a huge argument, not because someone betrayed someone else, but simply because two people are no longer moving in the same direction. That is the kind of disconnection that hurts the most. Everything happens quietly. The messages become less frequent. The calls become less frequent. The meetings get postponed more and more. Until one day, you realize, it has been a very long time since you were truly present in each other's lives. I once had a friend with whom I did almost everything when we were younger. We used to talk about dreams, the future, the things we wanted to do as adults. But as the years passed, everything started changing. I began spending time developing myself, reading more books, thinking more seriously about life. Meanwhile, he continued living the same way, partying, procrastinating, drifting through life, avoiding responsibility. At first, I tried to maintain the connection, but gradually, every conversation started making me feel exhausted. Not because he was a bad person, but because we no longer viewed life the same way. That was when I understood. Growing up does not only change your life, it also changes the people walking beside you. Many people think losing friends is a sign of failure, but that is not always true. Sometimes it is simply a sign that you are becoming a different version of yourself. The older you get, the more carefully you begin choosing the energy around you. You no longer want shallow conversations, meaningless drama, relationships that drain you. You begin valuing peace, depth, sincerity, people who help you grow, and naturally that makes your circle smaller. There is a stage in life where you will feel very lonely because you no longer belong in the old places, but you also have not completely found the new people who truly fit you. That is the stage where many people try returning to their old version just so they do not feel lost. They continue holding on to relationships that no longer fit them. Continue showing up in places that no longer make them happy. Continue trying to fit in even though deep down they have felt exhausted for a long time, simply because they fear the feeling of slowly losing all their friends. But remember this, not every separation is a loss. Some people are only meant for a certain chapter of your life. They come to teach you something, walk beside you for a while, help you grow, and then life naturally pulls everyone in different directions. That does not mean the memories were fake. It simply means everything has changed. And that is a normal part of growing up. Today, many people feel lonely even though they are surrounded by countless connections. Because the older you get, the more you realize real connection is not about the number of people around you. It is about whether someone allows you to be yourself, whether someone understands your silence, whether someone stays when you are no longer cheerful, whether someone genuinely wants to see you happy. One person like that is worth more than hundreds of superficial relationships. The older I get, the more I believe. A small but sincere circle is far better than trying to maintain countless shallow relationships. And sometimes, loneliness is not a sign that you are failing. It is simply the quiet space between leaving behind your old self and becoming a more mature person. Ask yourself, is there a relationship you are still trying to hold on to, even though deep down you know you no longer belong there? Are you afraid of loneliness so you continue staying in connections that exhaust you? And if today you stop trying to please everyone, who would truly remain beside you? Because the older you get, the more you understand another painful truth. Truth 5. Not everyone deserves your kindness. When we are young, we often think, the more kindness we give, the better life will become. You try to be kind to everyone. You compromise. You forgive. You always think about other people's feelings before your own. You believe. If you stay sincere long enough, people will understand and appreciate it. But adulthood teaches you a very painful lesson. Not everyone knows how to value kindness. Some people see your kindness as an opportunity to take more from you. At first, it starts with very small things. One favor, one moment of tolerance, one act of patience. Then gradually it becomes a habit. They begin thinking, you will always endure. You will always forgive. You will always be there. And the most dangerous part is, many kind people do not realize they are being mistreated. Because they always try viewing others with compassion. They tell themselves, maybe they didn't mean it. They're probably just tired. Everyone has bad moments, so they continue giving more chances. Continue silently enduring. Continue sacrificing. Until one day, they realize they have lost too much energy trying to keep people who never truly appreciated them. I once knew a woman who always put her family and friends before herself. Whenever anyone needed something, she helped. Whenever anyone had problems, she showed up. She almost never refused anyone. But after many years, she began feeling exhausted. Not because she hated people, but because she realized many people had only become used to receiving from her without ever truly caring what she needed. When she was sad, nobody noticed. When she was tired, nobody checked on her. When she became silent, almost nobody looked for her. That was when she broke down crying and said something I will never forget. Maybe I spent my whole life taking care of everyone else and forgot to take care of myself. Many people are living like this. They think loving others means constantly sacrificing themselves. But no, true maturity is when you understand kindness also needs boundaries. Otherwise, it becomes a doorway for people to enter your life and hurt you again and again. Do you know what exhausts many adults the most? Not work, not life pressure, but the feeling of always having to carry relationships on their shoulders. Always being the first one to text. Always being the first one to apologize. Always being the one trying to understand everyone else. While almost nobody tries to understand them, that is why the older people get, the more they learn to create boundaries. When you are young, you think boundaries are selfish. But when you grow up, you realize boundaries are how you protect your peace. You do not need to over-explain when saying no. You do not need to feel guilty for prioritizing your mental health. And you do not need to continue maintaining a relationship simply because you used to be close. There is one truth I want you to remember clearly. People who genuinely care about you will respect your boundaries. They will not make you feel guilty just because you need rest. Will not make you feel like a bad person for refusing. Will not only come to you when they need something. On the other hand, people who only want to take from you will become uncomfortable the moment you begin setting boundaries. Because then, they can no longer easily use your kindness. I have seen many people lose themselves simply because they tried too hard to become the good person in everyone's eyes. They were afraid of being disliked, afraid of disappointing someone, afraid of being called different. So they kept giving even when they were completely exhausted inside. But remember this, you cannot heal others by continuously hurting yourself. And you cannot build a peaceful life if you constantly allow the wrong people into your space. The older you get, the more you understand. True kindness is not about giving everything away. It is about knowing who deserves it. Some people only need your help once and they will appreciate it for a very long time. But there are also people who, no matter how much you sacrifice, will still think it is not enough. That is why you must learn to choose the right people to love. Ask yourself, is there someone in your life who always makes you feel like you have to try too hard just to keep them? Is there someone treating your kindness like something automatic? And are you giving because of genuine love, or simply because you are afraid of losing a relationship? Because the next truth sometimes hurts even more than words. Truth 6. Silence sometimes says everything. When we are young, we always think every problem needs an explanation. If someone changes, we want to know why. If a relationship cracks, we want to talk things through clearly. If someone hurts us, we want to hear an apology. We believe, if we just talk enough, everything will be okay. But the older you get, the more you realize a heartbreaking truth. Some answers exist inside silence. Not everyone is brave enough to tell you the truth. Not everyone is mature enough to end things clearly. So instead, they choose to reply more slowly, become more distant, grow colder, slowly disappear from your life. And what hurts people most is not always betrayal. Sometimes it is watching someone who used to be close become a stranger right in front of you. You text them, but they no longer respond with enthusiasm. You tell stories, but they no longer listen. You are present, but it feels like you no longer matter in their life. At first, you try finding reasons. Maybe they are busy. Maybe they are under pressure. Maybe it is just a phase. But deep down, you begin sensing that something has changed. And human intuition is rarely wrong about things like this. I once knew a friend with whom I used to talk almost every day. We shared everything, from work and life to personal struggles. But after some time, I felt everything beginning to change. The conversations became shorter. The replies became more superficial. The presence was no longer the same. And the most uncomfortable part was, nothing had actually happened. No argument, no betrayal, no clear goodbye. Just distance slowly growing in silence. And I remember trying to hold on. I asked, is something wrong? Have you been okay lately? Did I do something wrong? But the harder I tried to keep things together, the more exhausted I felt. Until one day I finally understood. When someone truly wants to stay in your life, you will not constantly have to search for reassurance from them. People who genuinely care will not leave you endlessly wondering whether you still matter to them. That was when I learned a very mature lesson. Not every silence needs to be broken. Some silences are the answer. When we are young, we fear silence. We try filling it with explanations, desperation, endless conversations, or attempts to repair a relationship that changed long ago. But maturity teaches you, the harder you try to hold on to some things, the more painful they become. Do you know what exhausts many people in relationships? Not breakups, not arguments, but the feeling of always trying alone to maintain the connection. Always being the first one to text. Always being the one checking in. Always being the one trying to save disappearing closeness. While the other person already left long ago, they just never said it out loud. And sometimes, the most mature thing you can do is accept that change. Not because you are cold, but because you understand. Not everyone is meant to stay beside you forever. Some relationships only walk with you for part of the journey. Trying to hold on to what has already changed only exhausts both people more. Today, many people are terrified of losing connections, so they desperately hold on to friendships that no longer have depth, relationships that are no longer sincere, people who remain only out of habit. But the truth is, a relationship without genuine presence will always make you feel lonely, even if that person is still beside you. I want you to remember this. An adult's silence is not always hatred. Sometimes it is disappointment, exhaustion, or acceptance that things have changed. And the older you get, the more you understand. Not everyone who leaves needs to give you a long explanation. Their actions already said enough. If someone constantly makes you feel unimportant, unheard, unappreciated, then their silence is already your answer. You do not need to keep chasing someone who is slowly walking out of your life. Ask yourself, is there a relationship you are trying to save, even though deep down you know everything has changed? Is there someone who constantly makes you search for reassurance from them? And are you holding on to them because of genuine love, or simply because you have not accepted the feeling of losing them yet? Because the next truth will make you realize, not everyone can be saved from their own life. Truth 7. You cannot save everyone. When we are young, we often believe, if we love someone enough, they will change. If we become more patient, they will understand. If we always stay by their side, they will become better. If we sacrifice enough, the relationship will be saved. That is why so many people spend years of their lives trying to save others, trying to save someone who does not want to mature, does not want to take responsibility, does not want to change themselves. And the painful thing is, the more you try pulling them up, the more they pull you down. I once met a woman who spent almost her entire youth trying to change the man she loved. He was irresponsible, quick-tempered, always procrastinating, constantly promising he would change, and every time she believed him. She thought, if I love him enough, he'll become different. If I become more patient, everything will be okay. So she kept forgiving, kept sacrificing, kept staying, year after year, until one day, she looked back at herself and realized, the person who had changed the most in that relationship was never him. It was her. She became more exhausted, more sad, more drained, and slowly lost herself. That was when she understood a very painful truth. You cannot save someone who does not want to save themselves. This is something many adults realize far too late. They think love means carrying another person's life on their shoulders. But no, love does not mean becoming responsible for all of someone else's chaos. There is a very thin line between helping someone and sacrificing yourself to save them. Many people cross that line without realizing it. They become the one who always fixes things, the one who always forgives, the one who always stays, the one who always endures, while the other person never truly wanted to change. Do you know what exhausts many people in relationships? Not because they love too little, but because they try to save too much. They always think, just a little more. Maybe this time will be different. I can't leave them during difficult times. But some people treat your kindness as a place to continue avoiding responsibility. They know, no matter how many mistakes they make, you will still stay. And that prevents them from ever truly changing. The older I get, the more I understand. People only change when they truly want to change. No one can mature for someone else. No one can live another person's life for them. And no one can heal a person who constantly refuses to face themselves. Today, many people are living in emotional exhaustion simply because they are always trying to become the rescuer. They constantly solve other people's problems, carry other people's emotions, heal other people's wounds, while nobody asks, what about you? They are strong for everyone else while silently collapsing inside. That is why you need to understand this early. You can love someone and still choose to leave. You can care about someone without sacrificing your entire life for them. And sometimes, the best thing you can do for someone is let them face the consequences of their own choices. Because if you always save them from every difficulty, they will never grow up. Some people only begin changing once nobody continues saving them anymore. That is a very difficult truth to accept, especially for emotional people. They always feel guilty for leaving, feel selfish for choosing themselves, feel like they are bad for no longer having enough strength to continue carrying others. But remember this, you were not born to become a healing place for everyone. You also deserve peace, deserve to be loved properly, deserve to live your own life. If a relationship constantly makes you exhausted, drained of energy, lose yourself, then it is no longer healthy love. It is self-sacrifice. The older you get, the more you understand. The greatest responsibility every person has is saving their own life. You can accompany someone, encourage them, love them, but you cannot live their life for them. Ask yourself, is there someone in your life you are trying to save while you yourself are becoming more exhausted every day? Are you staying because of genuine love, or because you would feel guilty for leaving? And are you helping them grow, or simply helping them continue avoiding responsibility for their own life? Because the next truth is something many people only understand after years of exhaustion. Truth 8. The older you get, the less you explain yourself. When we are young, we often have a very strong need. We want other people to understand us. You want to explain why you are sad, want others to understand why you changed, want to prove that you are not as bad as they think. So you try explaining everything. You explain why you became quiet, why you left, why you are no longer the same, why you need distance. You try making others understand who you truly are. But then adulthood teaches you a very exhausting truth. Not everyone wants to understand you. Some people already decided how they want to see you long ago. No matter how much you explain, it will not change that. When I was younger, every time I was misunderstood, I became very frustrated. I wanted to explain everything clearly, wanted to explain my intentions, wanted others to know. It's not what you think, but the older I got, the more I realized, people who truly want to understand you will try to understand even when you do not say much. And people who want to judge you will always find reasons to misunderstand you. That is why mature people gradually explain themselves less. Not because they are cold, but because they understand not every argument is worth participating in. Some conversations become more exhausting the more you talk. You try explaining your emotions to someone who never truly listened to you. You try proving your sincerity to someone who lost trust long ago. You try saving a relationship that only you are trying to preserve. And in the end, the only thing you receive back is exhaustion. I once met a man who was very successful in his career. But what impressed me most about him was not his money or status. It was his calmness. He did not try explaining himself to everyone. When misunderstood, he did not react immediately. When judged, he did not try proving himself. When others spoke wrongly about him, he simply smiled and continued living his life. I once asked him, "Doesn't that bother you?" And he told me something I will never forget. When I was young, I wanted everyone to understand me. As I matured, I only wanted peace. That was when I understood. True maturity often comes with silence. When you are young, you want to win every argument. You want to fix every misunderstanding, want recognition, want others to see your value. But the older you get, the more you understand. Peace matters more than always being right. Some people spend their entire lives trying to prove themselves to others, trying to prove they are capable enough, good enough, successful enough, valuable enough. But the sad thing is, no matter how hard you try, there will always be people who dislike you, misunderstand you, judge you. That is unavoidable. And maturity is when you stop letting that control your emotions. Today, social media makes people even more exhausted because of the need to constantly explain themselves. People continuously explain their life choices, explain their emotions, explain their success, explain their failures, as if they need acceptance from the entire world just to live their lives. But remember this, you do not need everyone's approval to live truthfully as yourself. Some people will never understand the path you choose, will not understand your changes, will not understand why you distanced yourself from them. And that is okay, because not everyone is meant to walk the same journey with you. The older you get, the more you begin protecting your energy for the things that truly matter. You no longer want meaningless arguments, trying to please everyone, explaining yourself to people who do not want to listen. You choose silence more often, observe more, and protect your peace more. That is not weakness. That is emotional maturity. Do you know what is most powerful about mature people? They no longer constantly need recognition to feel valuable. They know who they are, know what matters to them, and understand that. Life is too short to waste all their energy trying to please everyone. Ask yourself, how many times have you tried explaining yourself only to still be misunderstood? How much energy are you wasting just hoping others will validate you? And are you living your own life or living to be accepted by other people? Because the next truth will make you realize something very important. Truth 9. Not everyone who leaves is a loss. There is something many people only understand after having their hearts broken many times. Not everyone who leaves your life is a bad thing. When we are young, we often think losing someone means loss. A friendship ends. A relationship falls apart. Someone who used to be close slowly drifts away, and we suffer while trying to hold on to them. You remember the old messages, the old memories, the days when everything was still good. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Why did they change? Why isn't everything the same anymore? So you keep holding on. You give more chances. You continue enduring. You continue hoping that everything will return to the way it used to be. But sometimes, what hurts you is not because that person was right for you. It is because you have not accepted that they no longer belong in your life. I once knew a man who stayed in a relationship for nearly 10 years. He always thought, if I just try a little harder, everything will be okay. Even though he was becoming more exhausted, even though they argued constantly, even though he was no longer himself in that relationship, he still stayed. Not because he was happy, but because he was afraid of losing something that had felt familiar for so long. That is what many people are doing every day. They hold on to relationships that died long ago, friendships that exist only out of habit, people who drain them emotionally simply because they are afraid of starting over alone. But then one day the relationship ended. And surprisingly, after all the pain, he began feeling relieved. He slept better, felt more peaceful, no longer had to constantly explain himself, no longer had to keep trying to hold on to someone who was already slowly leaving. That was when he understood a very mature truth. Not everyone who leaves takes something good away from your life. Some people leave so your life can become lighter. But because we fear loneliness so much, we usually do not realize that at first. When we are young, we often measure the value of a relationship by how long we have known each other, how many years we stayed connected, the memories we shared. But maturity teaches you. Just because someone has been beside you for a long time does not mean they are meant for you forever. People change, values change, directions change, and sometimes letting go is necessary so both people can continue growing. The most painful part of letting go is not losing that person. It is accepting that the version of them in your memories no longer exists. You still remember the person who once made you happy, but the person standing in front of you now is different. Many people continue staying in toxic relationships because they are in love with memories, not reality anymore. They remember how that person used to care, used to love them, used to stay beside them, and they keep hoping that one day the old version of that person will come back. But life does not always work that way. Some people are only meant for a certain chapter of your life, and their leaving is not always punishment. Sometimes it is freedom. I know this is very difficult to accept, especially when you have given someone so much love. But the older you get, the more you understand. Keeping the wrong person beside you just because you fear losing them will cause you to lose yourself first. Some people walk out of your life, and only afterward do you realize. You feel more peaceful, lighter inside, no longer forced to carry emotional weight constantly. That is not selfishness. It is a sign that you are finally choosing something better for yourself. Today, many people are afraid of letting go. They fear starting over, loneliness, change, having no one beside them, so they continue holding on to relationships that have hurt them for far too long. But remember this, being lonely for a while is better than losing yourself for many years. You do not need to keep everyone in your life to prove you are a loving person. Sometimes maturity is learning to say, thank you for the part of the journey we shared, but we are no longer right for each other. And that does not make you a bad person. It simply means you finally understand that your peace matters too. Ask yourself, is there someone in your life you are trying to hold on to, even though deep down you know the relationship is only exhausting you? Are you staying because of genuine love, or simply because you fear the feeling of loss? And if that person left today, would it truly be a loss or an opportunity for you to find yourself again? Because the final truth is something many people only understand after enduring a great deal of pain. Truth 10, peace matters more than being liked. When we are young, many of us live based on an invisible need, the need to be liked by everyone. You try to become easy to get along with, try to please everyone, try to avoid disappointing anyone. You fear being disliked, being misunderstood, being judged, being left behind. So you learn how to stay silent when unhappy, agree even when you do not want to, try fitting in with everyone, just to maintain the feeling that you are accepted. But the older you get, the more you realize something very important. If you live to please everyone, you will slowly lose yourself. I have met many people who looked perfectly fine on the outside. They had many relationships, were liked by many people, always appeared with smiles on their faces, but inside they were exhausted because they spent too much time becoming the version other people wanted instead of being their true selves. They constantly had to maintain an image, control emotions, maintain relationships, maintain other people's approval, until one day they no longer knew if all of those things disappeared who they truly were. That is the price many people pay for living too long trying to be liked. I remember there was a period in my life when I constantly felt pressure to please everyone around me. If someone was sad, I felt responsible for making them happy again. If someone was disappointed, I thought I had done something wrong. If a relationship changed, I was always the first one trying to fix it. But then one day, I realized, no matter how hard you try, there will still be people who dislike you. You behave well, and some people will still misunderstand you. You are sincere, and some people will still betray you. You stay silent, and some people will still judge you. And the most dangerous part is, if your value depends on whether other people like you or not, you will spend your entire life exhausted. Because you cannot control how people see you. You cannot force everyone to understand you. Cannot please everyone. Cannot maintain every relationship. And maturity is finally accepting that. A major shift happens when people truly grow up. They begin asking, does this bring me peace? Instead of, what will other people think? That is when life begins feeling lighter. You stop trying to prove yourself to everyone. Stop trying to be part of every relationship. Stop trying to keep people who constantly make you anxious. You begin choosing quietness, genuine connections, places where you can truly be yourself. When you are young, you fear loneliness, so you try keeping many people around you. But the older you get, the more you understand. Being around the wrong people is lonelier than being alone. Some relationships make you constantly carry emotional pressure, constantly guess other people's emotions, constantly fear abandonment, constantly feel like you are not enough. That is not peace. And a life without peace will slowly destroy a person from the inside. Today, many people are emotionally exhausted because they are constantly trying to become the person society expects them to be. On social media, everyone tries to appear happier, more successful, more perfect, but behind all of that, many people lose connection with themselves. They no longer know what they truly want, what truly makes them happy, what truly gives them peace. That is why I believe one of the most beautiful signs of maturity is when you no longer need validation from everyone. You begin living more slowly, more selectively, with fewer relationships, but more genuine ones. You no longer need to appear everywhere to feel valuable. You understand that a few sincere people are worth far more than shallow attention from a crowd. And the most wonderful part is, when you stop trying to please everyone, you finally have the chance to live honestly as yourself. I want you to remember this for a long time. Peace is not when life no longer has problems. It is when you no longer lose yourself trying to keep other people around. You do not need everyone to like you in order to live a meaningful life. You only need to live according to your values. Keep sincere people close and protect the peace within your mind, because in the end, the most valuable thing about growing up is not how many people stay beside you. It is, after all the pain and changes, you still remain yourself. And maybe that is true maturity. The older you get, the more you realize what hurts people most is not failure. It is seeing truth clearly that they once refused to believe. That not everyone is sincere, not every relationship lasts forever, and not everyone who stays beside you truly wants you to be happy. I know maybe some things in today's video touched very real experiences in your life. Maybe you have been betrayed, been used, lost people you once trusted deeply, or felt lonely in the middle of many relationships. But remember this: maturity is not becoming cold toward the world. It is learning how to see people clearly, protect your energy, and keep your heart wise enough not to keep placing kindness in the wrong places. Some people enter your life to teach you a lesson. Some people leave so you can understand the value of peace. And some wounds help you grow in ways comfort never could. Do not hate yourself just because you once trusted the wrong people. People who live sincerely will always experience pain at some point. But what matters is, do not let those experiences turn you into a bitter person. Let them turn you into someone deeper, stronger, more mature, and more appreciative of sincerity. Because in the end, life is not about how many people you can keep beside you. It is about, after all the losses and changes, you still keep your inner peace. If today's video touched you, leave a comment. What is the most painful truth about people that you learned while growing up? I truly want to hear your story. And if you want to continue your self-growth journey, do not forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with people who also need to hear this today. Because sometimes one awakening at the right moment can change an entire person's life. You and I both have one gift, that is today. Use it wisely. And I will see you again in the next video.